America is an aging nation. By 2030, 1 in every 5 people will be 65 or older. So, how are states and cities working now to create age friendly communities that improve the quality of life for everyone? AARP's Livable Communities program is helping communities, including more than 2 dozen in Wisconsin, figure out how to make their cities and counties livable for people of all ages. Helping us understand more about livable communities is Amber Miller. She is the Senior Associate State Director for AARP Wisconsin. Amber, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Denise. Good to see you.
What was the catalyst for the Livable Communities Project? Why was it created and how did it get started?
Thank you so much, Denise, for having me. This is going to be a great conversation because a lot of people don't know this part about AARP. But back in 2012, in partnership with the World Health Organization, also known as WHO, we partnered on the age-friendly, or also known as Livable Community Initiative, and really thought, AARP really is local and in your community, and how can we do a better job working with local communities to ensure that it could be age-friendly for all ages, whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old. One of our first communities that we worked with in 2012 was Macon-Bibb, Georgia, and that really was our pilot of how can we work more in a grassroots way with impact, whether it's boots on the ground, whether it's workshops and information, but really getting the community together and engaged in this livable community, because we really do think that people want to stay in their community as long as they can, and how can we ensure that we are supporting the communities to be a better support system.
What are some of the elements that you take a look at when we were putting together this information to try to define some of the elements that would be in an age-friendly community? What does it look like?
Yeah, so we have what we call the 8 domains of livability. And people can find that also on our website, but I will mention a few of them. One of the main domains is transportation. So when we look at our community, we are a very car-centric community. So we're driving everywhere, but we have to start looking at different options. So one, when we work with communities, is what other options are there? So we look at public transit, which is huge. Are there options? Also walkability. I know in the city of Milwaukee, there's a really big issue with and concern around pedestrian safety. So ensuring that people can cross the street safely. Another domain that is big is housing. AARP did a survey about 5 years ago that people want to stay in their community as long as they can. So they own this beautiful house, but maybe the house is starting to get too large for them, so they want to downsize. They're starting to look in their community, but there's no other option. So, we consider that missing middle housing. So what other types of housing could there be to ensure that it's accessible, visitable, and affordable? And then another one of the main domains is public spaces and parks. So not everybody has access or walkability to a park. So how can we ensure that buildings are accessible for people of all ages? And once again, even though AARP, we focus on 50 and older, with livable communities, we're still looking at the mom with a stroller with a child, or somebody who maybe has different abilities and might be in a wheelchair. So these are the things that we look at. And when I talk about those, I'm like, those are the things that I would want to focus on, and that's the community I would want to live in.
Is part of the process as communities get started, really taking a look at all these different domains and beginning to work together to figure out what that means for their individual communities. There's no cookie cutter aspect of this. Communities really work on their own to decide what they want.
Correct. Yeah, Denise, that's a really great point. It is not a one size fits all. So it is a 5-year commitment. So the community, it could be a community, city, could be the whole state, looks at it from a perspective of, time and commitment. So there is no funding attached to this, but it really is getting the right people around the table. So it's residents, it's, maybe elected officials, it's, Milwaukee County Transit System. It's all these different people around the table looking at, almost a gap analysis, as you can say, of like what is missing and what can we work on. And part of that is this extensive survey that they get through AARP that they send out to the community to listen to the community. The feedback and the engagement from the residents is so important. So that voice around the table is needed. Then they get the survey results back. They could do focus groups. We even do walk audits, which is getting a group of people together, different types of groups of people around the city, and going to places in your community that maybe have issues with speeding or pedestrian safety. So you're getting all that really rich survey feedback and saying, okay, based off the feedback from the community, these are the 2 or 3 domains that we're going to work on. And so throughout the 5-year commitment, it's really getting a steering committee together. It's doing walk audits, focus groups, listening sessions, and then putting together this really beautiful action plan that then is implemented and followed through for the remaining 3 years. So it really is a commitment from the community and from elected officials to say, we want to take the first steps we can do to ensure we're living in an age-friendly community.
Communities work then to put together these plans and develop something that's unique for their communities. Is there a financial commitment that communities have to make to be part of the Livable Communities program?
That's a great question, Denise. There is no financial commitment from the communities to be part of this. What there is a commitment of an elected official. So they definitely need the commitment from an elected official that will write a letter supporting this. And then they can kind of get started from there. So it's really nice because it really complements what the communities are already doing, which is such great work, but it gives it through a different lens of how can we make it better, which to me, every community can work on something to just be like, how can we look at it through a different lens to ensure that we are covering people of all ages.
And any recommendations that come out of the plan that is put together, maybe things that the community decides it wants to do as part of its regular maintenance. For example, making sidewalks more accessible or repairing sidewalks.
Correct. I will say walkability is definitely probably the number one issue that we've seen through all the communities throughout Wisconsin. And do we know that even though there is not a financial commitment from the livable community itself, that it's working with the city and county officials and departments to say, you know, how can we ensure that the sidewalks are safe? How can we ensure that there's enough time to cross the street? How can we ensure that there's green space for people to visit? So that's the reason why the action plan that is created out of the survey and the focus groups and the walk audits is so important, because that is how the first steps will be made to ensure that they are looking to create a livable community for all ages.
For all ages is an important piece of it, because even though the focus may initially be on making sure people can age in place, the reality of it is we would all like to be able to age in place at one point in time in our lives. So it's maybe an immediate benefit for aging adults now, but it's going to benefit everybody in the long run.
Correct. You know, I mentioned before too, you know, when people think of AARP, it really is 50 and older, but also looking at the 7-year-old who's walking to school, or the mom who is pushing a stroller, or, you know, somebody who is using a wheelchair. We have to look at it through all different lenses. It can't just be one lens, because then it's really going to be hard to get to that point where we can, you know, look around our community and say, you know, are we doing everything we can in our power to ensure that people can age in place, stay in their community, stay in their home, feel connected within their community. And, you know, where I live, I look around and there's not a lot of sidewalks. So to me, if I wasn't able to drive and if I did have to take public transportation, I would be worried about getting hit by a car. So I look at things totally different now than what I did before AARP, of, you know, ensuring like where I live, is this where I want to age? And is there, you know, enough housing? Is my house suitable? That's another thing that we look at for housing is, you know, is the house that you're currently staying in able Are you able to age safely in it? So it does really start putting things in different perspective. And I think that's why it's great to engage the community in this, because if we can get everybody involved, we can really start looking at it through a different lens.
Amber, thanks so much for being with us and explaining the Livable Communities program.
Thank you, Denise, for having me.
And for more information, you can visit the AARP website and search for Livable Communities. We're right back.